Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota Podcast. This is your South African cricket podcast that talks all things South African cricket. We're in the middle of the T20 World Cup. South Africa are doing well. They've won their games. The pitch in New York will always be the pitch in New York. Today we've got something special for you because this game is not going to be played in New York, but we'll get through that as well. Remember, for the show, you are on X and you can subscribe on the Full Quota Podcast YouTube channel. Please follow us on X, which is formerly Twitter. And also for you audio fiends like myself, we've got Apple Podcasts and Spotify channels as well. So please go there and look for the Full Quota Podcast as written in there. We're in the middle of the World Cup. We are getting ourselves ready for the final game of the World Cup for South Africa to play in Nepal. And so we thought, what better way to get someone from Nepal to give you a sense of the team that we're going to be playing. It's going to be the first time South Africa ever play in Nepal. So it's also a historic moment and a momentous occasion. And also a feather in the cap for the ICC, because now the world it feels more global, Tim. This World Cup feels more global. Tim, my co-host, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you. I'm quite pleased with how South Africa have gone so far. Quite pleased.
Yes,
we've had some ups and downs, some close moments, but reasonably happy as things stand.
Yeah, we're all waiting to get into the Super 8s and then figure out what's going to happen. And that's going to be quite important for us. But before we do anything, we have to get through this final game, which is Nepal. It's going to be played in Kingstown. And so that's going to be quite an interesting occasion. The first game for South Africa outside of America, as New York and the American venues start to close down as the World Cup now finally moves into the Caribbean. To do that, we've gotten Subas Humagain, who is a sports journalist from Nepal, who's going to be giving us a little bit more about Nepal. I think most of us only know one player from Nepal, that's Sandip Lamichhane, but we've got more. And he's here to kind of tell us what's going on and the news around him, as to whether he's going to be available or whatever, because we saw some tweets this week. So that's what we're going to be doing, and just get a sense of the growth of cricket in Nepal and what how big can cricket become there. So let's have Subas join us. Hi Subas, how are you doing?
Hi, Mpho. Hi, team.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us, Subas. And I think the first question for us and our fans would say, some people may not even know where Nepal is on the continent, in the world. But obviously you have a cricket team, and just give us a little bit of a history and a background about Nepalese cricket, obviously having started in 96 and coming to this moment in 2020.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, 96 was the time when our international cricket started, but domestic cricket was in place a bit before that, but it was limited to some people only. So it was in 2014 when cricket actually went crazy, the berserk, after we played the first ever World Cup. So since then, if you see the team right now, I think 13 out of 14 players are new. Only one player has played two World Cups for Nepal, and all these youngsters, they started playing cricket after we reached the first ever World Cup. So you can see how the World Cup has impacted the growth of the cricket in our country. So before post pre 2014, it was a limited number of people who used to follow cricket, who used to know how the game would go. But after World Cup, it was totally a different scene. So right now, cricket is arguably the number one sports in the country. So you used to have football, but I think there has been a huge shift of time, popularity, participation, and everything. So it's cricket everywhere. Even if you see the crowds that were on show for the first game, it was midnight, but you have thousands in stream watching live streams all over the country. So it was not just Texas that was having full house, but it was back home. We have public places doing streaming, and there was a huge number of people watching the game even at midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. So that it's the fan base that has been in talks for recent times, but I hope that goes and shifts to the players' performance. And we're playing three big matches against three big countries, so we're expecting some performance this time around from these players.
Interesting. I I suppose when we when I was sort of doing this sort of prelim work for this, I looked at the squad, and unlike a team like Uganda, you did sort of touch on it there. It's a very, very young squad. Only one player over the age of 30. Was that a deliberate ploy? Was the last generation, was it a deliberate plan to go in with the youngsters, or why was that? Why is it such a young squad? Is it because there's so much talent in the country?
It's a bit of a coincidence as well. So if you see, there are some players in the mix who over 30 who could have made it to the final squad, like Binod Vandari, who was part of the 2014 World Cup as well. But the youngsters, they have got good performance in recent years as well. So if you see, almost all the players have been through the under 19 age groups. So they played the under 19s, they have made the senior bow, and they have continued performing. It's not that the older players have been looked out. Uh, I think if you see players like Gyanendra Malla, they were in peak of their career, but they opted to go out and give chances to young players because they knew Nepali cricket is going to the next level, and there should be youngsters who should be getting the chances to make the cricket go for a long run. Uh, Even Paras Khadka, who is the secretary of CAN at the moment, so he only played 4 ODIs for Nepal. If he had continued, I think he would still be in the team. He had that quality of his game, but he opted to give it to the youngsters, and I think that has rightly been done. So the players have backed their decisions of the seniors. They're playing, and we have someone like Rohit Paudel who's just 21 but leading the team like nobody else. So I think it's a bit of a coincidence that the older players, they have opted to make their way, and the youngsters have grabbed the chance by the both of the hands.
That's great, and I think bringing youngsters in is quite important, especially for the growth of the game, and to have some sort of like a pipeline and to give the youth, as you mentioned, millions of people watch that game against the Netherlands. We're recording this before, obviously, you play Sri Lanka, and South Africa plays Bangladesh, and my question to you is, what are the expectations for Nepal, having been at a previous World Cup in 2014, but now obviously 10 years later, you're back at the world stage. Obviously, I'm assuming that the Netherlands loss was disappointing because you would consider them rivals. But going forward, what's the expectation for this Nepalese team in this World Cup to see, what would make a good World Cup for Nepal? Now.
Yeah, Netherlands match was the most important one. So if we had won that, so that there would be momentum. Like Sri Lanka right now, they have lost 2 matches in a row. So if we had that Netherlands win, we'd be in a totally different space. So we would be eyeing for a win with a team under huge pressure. But since we lost that match, I think the expectation has shifted a lot. So it's like now everything is a bonus. We're not expecting any results. We're expecting some players to step up and show what they can do in the global stage. So if you get something against Sri Lanka, I'm not saying result, but if you get some performance, that would be a bonus. So realistically, the cricket we have is way behind than teams like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and South Africa. So we can't expect good and win. So if there's our day and some player, one or two players turn up, because we have talent that can change the game, like Kushal Malla. If he goes on, I think it's hard to stop him. So Dipendra Singh Airi, as we all know, is a complete package of T20. So players like there's a talk of Sandip Lamichhane coming to West Indies. Whether he gets to play or not is a different thing, but he is there. So I think that has already have some murmurs in Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, South Africa, because the pitch there that supports the spinner. We already have 2 or 3 good spinners in the team, and Sandip coming in is going to be a huge thing. So I don't I can, we can't say we expect results against big test teams, but if we go there and give good performance, I think that's more than what we wanted.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be a competitive group as at the moment as things stand. What about the appointment of Monty Desai as the national coach a couple of years ago. He's given you a lot of success. You qualified for the first time at the Asia Cup, qualified for the 2023 qualifiers, this World Cup. So how big as his appointment with his experience from the IPL, the West Indies, and various other coaching jobs, how important has his role been for Nepal cricket?
Yeah, it's been the turning point. So Monty Desai is not a new name in Nepali cricket. So he was there in 2015 after the World Cup participation. So he was there as a batting consultant, and come 2017, he was part of the under 19 setup. So that was the time when we beat India. So you see Abhishek Sharma at the moment. So he was the part of the team that Nepal beat, and that under 19 team had Dipendra Singh Hari, Sandip Lamichhane, Lalit Rajbanshi, Asif Sheikh. So the stars of the national team currently, so they were part of that team that with under 19s. So I think that was another part where we saw our youngsters coming good. So Monty Desai was in the plans for Kian for a long time, but it didn't materialize because he was busy with West Indies and all. But since he came, I think the players knew him more than that. Monty knew how Nepali cricket worked. So it was a like of homecoming for him, and he had players who he can bank on, and he just kept believing them, and they produced the results. And to add up, we had 8 home games that really benefited him. So we needed that to save the ODI status. But once we get going, it was not just about the ODI status. We saved the ODI status. Then we went on to play the qualifiers. And then there comes the Premier Cup back in home. So we look very good in the home conditions because we practice there all the time. But when it comes to away conditions, I think we have not quite been able to match that.
Okay, and I think that's understandable, right? And in the way that you've obviously come through the different parts of the journeys in the associate level cricket, it's really tough, coming up and playing in different conditions, and because your players don't get that many opportunities. Speaking of the you mentioned that your squad is young, but your squad's been together for quite some time now as well. Which players are you most relying on to have a good World Cup, right? We know Pudel, but are there any other players that you think should a win against Bangladesh or Sri Lanka or even South Africa occur? Who are these players that would put their hands up and say, these are the guys that got us that win?
I'd love to. We don't have actually a single superstar that we can rely like that. Like I can tell you names, but Dipendra Singh is definitely on top of that list. So because he's a complete package. He can change the games with his fielding ability itself. He bats lower middle order somewhere around 5-6. So he is known for his finishing ability. So he bowls well off spin, tightens the spell. But we have a lot of impact players. We don't have someone like, let's say, Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma, but we have a team full of players who can, on their day, win the matches. So Kushal Mallai is one, a very young player, left-handed, likes to slog a lot. So if he works, I think if it's his day, I think he could be the one who can be the next big thing. He has that ability to win matches for the country, and because we were playing express pace like South Africa, they have 4 pacers. Similar with Sri Lanka, the last match, Nuwan Thusara nearly won them that game. So it's similar to Bangladesh. They have Mustafizur. So we're not quite used to playing that amount of pace, 140, 150 quite regularly, because back home we only have who have 130, 135 pace. So I think it would be interesting to see how we tackle with that pace, because back in the qualifiers we really struggled with short ball. Then comes Asia Cup, we tackled Mohammad Siraj really well. So it depends on how we tackle pace bowlers, because we're quite used to playing spin pitches.
Yeah, interesting. When we spoke to Stefan Myberg about the Netherlands game, he said that what he was most worried about is what you just said, was the extra pace of having to play Nokia and Rabada. It was just going to be too much. And and that turned out to be the case. Um, in Nepal itself, so you rightly pointed out that the strength is the spin. Is there a something happening in Nepal to try to rectify that somewhat? To try and is there a pace bowling camps that are going on in the country, that sort of thing, to try and find a couple, one or two pace bowlers that can accompany your strength and your weakness? Or are you just at the moment having to just be so reliant on spin, and that's just the nature of your pitches and the squad?
Actually, it has changed in the last few years. So if you look at the League Two last 8 games, they were not spin-friendly pitches; they were batting pitches, and that's had been the change since Monty Desai came. We are not just relying on spinners. So even if you look at the team, there was a time
Mm,
when we used to play four men spinners in the team, and I
yeah.
think it was in last year we didn't have any. So the shift has changed because we are too reliant on spinners. We had to change our team. We had to change our individuals because we didn't have as good spinners as we used to have. So we brought some medium pacers, but we don't get that pace in Nepal because Sompal Kami is one of the fastest we have, and he bowls 135 on average.
Mm,
So it's not that we don't have youngsters who are coming through, but we don't have any history of having pace bowlers or something like that. So I think the next thing that Can would invest on is having a fast bowling coach. So like Proteas is currently, so he's only here for the World Cup, but he's made it clear that he's not going to be here for increasing the pace or something like that. So he'll work on the bowler's discipline and try to make most of what he has. So I think the Cairns should really invest in getting some good bowling coaches and going into the grassroots, seeing the talent and nurture them. Right now in domestic setup, we don't have someone who bowls 140 or 150. So I think that's hard to it's hard to expect have someone straight over.
Well,
yeah.
I was gonna.
Yes.
England doesn't have a 140 plus in it either on their
Mm,
English conditions. If you've got 135 and it's good enough, that's good enough. It's just finding that level.
Yeah, that's what Roddy mentioned. So it's not only about pace, it's about discipline, and it's what plan you're going to set up against our opponents. So uh, even in the match against Netherlands, I think Sompal Kami bowled pretty well. Avinash Bora was on the mark. So if you bowl consistently, I think you can make use with 130 or 135 as well. But playing South Africa, playing Miller, playing Klassen, playing Stubbs is going to be different than what we played against Netherlands. So it's going to be a tough test for us playing against world-class batters who we have seen in IPL as well. But I'm not going to expect a lot from them because we've not been tested as we're going to be in these three matches.
mm, yes. So obviously Nepal play Sri Lanka in New York, and we've seen that New York pitch and how tough it is to bat on, and it brings teams, it closes the gap between teams quite a lot. Are you looking and hoping that obviously that when you do play them, that it does bring you in? And is there a way for Nepal to be competitive in that game? Because Sri Lanka in themselves have struggled in this tournament, and the one thing that Sri Lanka has struggled with is their batting. Do you see a way in which you can get the win against Sri Lanka and be able to advance, to get a win in this World Cup and move on, and maybe even do something against Bangladesh in the Caribbean where you play with South Africa as well?
So we're playing in Florida. So this is the
Oh,
first match. I
sorry.
think that's official match. World Cup match going to be played in Florida. So Sri Lanka and
Mm,
Netherlands played the warm-up match here, and Sri Lanka lost. So one advantage they have is they know how the pitches react here that we are unaware about. And it was I talked to Nuwan Thusara after the previous match, and they still believed they could get through if they get the win in the last two games. So I think the group is quite wide open, and a lot resides on how Netherlands play against Bangladesh, because even Bangladesh are on front foot now, having won that match against Sri Lanka. And Sri Lanka have lost two, but I think the quality they possess, the fast bowlers, the spinners they have, it's going to be a tough test for our batters because batting has not been our strongest unit. We've not fired. Our openers have not scored double figures for quite a while. So it's our batting that's concerning more than our bowling. I think bowling fielding has been top notch. Even against Netherlands, we made a match out of that score. But Sri Lanka, the way they bat, they have that players, I think it's tough for us to expect any result. But it's going to be bowling that's going to bring us into the game if we have any chance.
Okay.
Yeah, you talked there about your struggles with your batting. Uh, do you think there might be some changes in the batting lineup because of that? They might try something out of the ordinary to rejig the batting order to focus on one or two players who obviously have the talent, but for whatever reason are not getting the are not showing it at the moment.
It's tough to expect that because I think we played a lot of cricket in preparation for the World Cup, and we've constantly used the same lineup. So if you look at the top of the order, we've been reliant on Asif and Kushal for a long time. So there's a chance that Anil opens with them, but you can't expect Monty Desai to change his plans quite so easily because if we see there was chance of Kushal Malla opening the innings that like he did in the age group cricket as well, but he's not gone that path. He's stick with these two players. Anil coming in some once in a while, but he's made it clear that he's going to stick with these players. But come Sri Lanka, even if they don't score against Sri Lanka, I think they have to change that because it's 4 games of the World Cup. They have not played in two. It's justifiable that they don't continue that plan. But if they score against Sri Lanka, I think it's going to be good. And since the coach has backed them for a long while, I think it's pressure on the players themselves because there are options that the team can use, but they've stick to them for a long time. So it's about trust as well. Monty Desai he works with emotions a lot rather than the numbers. So I hope the players back that decision with the numbers now.
Yeah. Let's speak about one of the more recognizable players in Nepal, which is Sandip Lamichhane. Obviously, I think Khan released a statement that he's available for the last two games that are in St. Vincent because he doesn't require a visa to go there. How does he? What does he bring to the team? Obviously, he's played in more international T20 tournaments, and he's more recognizable. But what's the what will he what does he bring to the team that is needed and outside of obviously being their star name? I don't think he's been playing cricket for a while, so that's the other thing that comes into mind.
Yeah, he's going to be a threat to the oppositions because oppositions will have to keep an eye on him with the record he possesses and West Indies pitch being friendly to spinners like we saw Akhil Hossain picking up five. So St. Vincent is going to be a bit different conditions, but we played the Nepalese team has gone there and played practice matches in similar conditions, and we saw our part timers grabbing 3-4 wickets. So we know spin is going to be a factor there, and having Sandeep sporting wise, I think Can has done everything they can to get in there. And Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, South Africa, Bangladesh, 2 games where we need our spin attack to be top notch. So he'll bring that sense of threat for oppositions as well. They can't take it easy because we know what he can do. He's been doing it in CPL continuously and he's played there as well. So it's a bit of an advantage going forward. Even if we lose 2 matches, there will be some gain of momentum with his involvement. And I think Sri Lanka, South African players, they've known him playing in CPL, even IPL. I think Rabada and he shared the same team, so they will have background information on how he does. But as you said, he's not played for cricket for quite months, but he has been training in the nets and playing, but training in the nets and playing in the matches, two different things. So, and the worst part is Nepal, they'll play in 11th, they'll travel on 12th, and they'll only have a day with him training in St. Vincent. So a lot relies on how he brings the trust in the coaching unit to back him and play him straight away.
Okay.
I know you kind of said that it's going to be an uphill struggle when Nepal eventually play South Africa. But if things were to go your way, if maybe there was some rain to shorten the game, South Africa were off the ball, started to drop catches. Maybe they lost against Bangladesh later today. So
Mhm.
there was the added pressure. Um, we know what South Africa's like at World Cups. What needs to go right for Nepal to be competitive? Let's put it that way. What needs to go right for Nepal to be competitive in the
Mm.
game against South Africa?
I think all relies on the top order. So imagine if our openers they can play Bartman, Rabada, and Nokia at the top of the order, and we don't lose wicket in the power play, even if it's a 20-over game. I think we're right in the
Mm.
game. It's about having a good start. So if you look at our previous games, we've lost both openers inside the power play, and we've not got runs. So even if we are, let's say, 40 for 0 after 6 overs, we have batters at the end who can fire. So I think we need to be free. We need to be free of pressure after the power
Yeah.
play, where the batters can really play the game. So it's everything relies on the openers. I've been saying repeatedly, bowling, fielding. I think we're top notch. I know we dropped some catches against Netherlands, but it was too low of a score to defend and to make a match out of it. But we know our fielders. We can trust them how they can produce on their day. But it's going to be batting, and if we can tackle that power play without any wicket, I think we're right in the game, and we could be in for a surprise.
Yes. Surprises are what the ICC wants. South Africans don't want surprises. But the way games have gone in this World Cup, anything can happen. And to a certain extent, that's the beauty of this World Cup, is that effectively there's 18 teams that can win a game on their day, which is really awesome. And that's quite exciting. The other thing for me, the final thing for me, is one of the key things about Nepal in this World Cup has been the fans. We saw in that game against the Netherlands so many fans coming in to support Nepal. How great has that been? Aligned with obviously with the growth of the game in Nepal itself, with the T20 tournament, and having one of the most picturesque stadiums in the world. But how has that reception been in America by the Nepalese fans for the team?
So actually, everywhere we go, we have the biggest fan base. Even in our conditions, the teams we play, UAE, Oman, Malaysia, Hong Kong, everywhere we go, we are the home team. So that's been
Mm,
the case. At our home, we turn up in thousands, but even away from home, there are hundreds of fans who turn up to see Nepal play. They leave their work, they get
mm,
excuses on their work, they come, they support the team, and that has even the players. They believe that the presence of fans boost their performance, and it was the same in Texas. I think since the fixtures was announced, there were this the first batch of ticket got sold out within minutes. So I think that explains how big of a game this is going to be. And I think in Florida as well, there are a lot of people from Dallas who traveled to Florida just to watch the match, even though the team lost. And I think
mm,
there are people who are going to St. Vincent for the match. Those who couldn't get the US visa, they've tried to go St. Vincent. They are Some of them are already getting their flights on. So fans have been. We're blessed to have such fans, and I think our performance in that Netherlands game was covered up by the participation of fans. So we expected the numbers to be that big, but it was a new message for ICC and the global cricket how passionate Nepalese fans are. And I think we're expecting the same in Florida as well. Even we're playing against Sri Lanka, we're going to outnumber those Sri Lankan fans here, like we did the Netherlands. I think we had to go to the players' family box to see some Dutch fans in that game. This time around, it's going to be a bit different, but you're going to get fans all around. Even if you lose 4 out of 4, I think the fans are going to be backing the team always, all the time.
that is amazing. I'm assuming in
Well,
St. Vincent when we play, there'll be many Nepalese fans, and that's going to be a home game too.
I'm expecting to outnumber South Africans in that game as well. I think we have rarely seen any teams getting more fan than our games. And
Mm,
what I expect is to play some test sessions at their home ground and be outnumbered. So that's the target that we're trying to be. But Nepalese fans, they are everywhere. Even if what I feel is, even if we play India in India, I think we are going to have some numbers of fans in that spectators area backing Nepal.
Wow. Yeah. That's something. That'll be a beautiful day, wouldn't it? India in
Yeah,
India.
yeah, yeah. That's been the dream. That's been the dream.
Yes, Tim?
Last one from me is, what's it been like being from your side? Because you're actually over there, you're in America. So what's it been like reporting on a World Cup in America, which isn't a cricket-loving nation? So from your point of view, you love your cricket, obviously. You come from Nepal. What's it been like reporting on the game in that country?
A bit underwhelming. So what I expected was, since the build-up was America getting trying to grow cricket in this area, but I'm not. I've been disappointed with what's going on outside of the stadium. So whatever it is, it's inside the stadium. We don't see anything else outside. I was in Dallas all 4 games. So whatever it is inside the stadium. If you go outside, nobody knows what's going on.
Mm,
So I think they've not quite been able to bank the US public that they're trying to, even in broadcast wise. So you have to subscribe the Wheeler channel. That I think cricket heads would always been doing that. So uh, I think New York has been a bit different. Looking at the images, I've not been to New York because Nepal is not playing there. But Dallas was not that impressive because we rarely saw billboards or promotion activities back there. It was limited to inside the cricket field, and those who watch cricket know what's inside. So I think it was about growing the game outside that core group who knows US cricket. But since the results from US in last 2 games, we beating Canada, and the first game was with Aaron Jones, then surprising Pakistan. So I think that's going to change the scene a bit. But so far, they've not been able to grow the game outside than what's already in.
Yeah,
yes, that's actually quite
it's a
interesting
challenge.
because it is. But you have, and the way I see it, Subas, is you've got America who isn't getting into it, but then you contrast it with your country who are in Asia. It's one of the biggest sports in Asia, and you've got this massive support, and it's quite an interesting thing for the ICC. Whereas you're trying to grow the game, but the parts of the world that you need to grow the game in are places like Nepal and I'm going to put Uganda in there and Oman, places where they understand the game of cricket and it can grow legs. Whereas I feel in this World Cup, it's you're adding another sport to a world that already has its sports and finding windows for cricket and then trying to get people to like the game of cricket. And the only way that can happen is if the USA find a way to make it to like the World Cup semifinals. If that can happen, that will drive a lot more. And that's how I see it, right? And my final question to you is growth of the game in Nepal, small country, not a lot of resources, for much for a better word, punching above your weight compared to other nations with a lot more money. You've beaten many of the bigger associate nations en route to this World Cup. What's the goal now? Obviously, I understand. Maybe it is. Yeah. What's the goal post this World Cup? What are you looking for Nepal to do?
So I think we need to work on our development at grassroots of cricket. I think it's been near non-existent in last few years. So if you don't know, the Cricket Association Nepal was banned by the ICC after political interference back in 2015, and it took
Mm,
until 2018, 2019 to get reinstate the board. So in that period of 4 years, women cricket was near to dead. Only senior team played. There was no age group cricket. So we had to rely on talent hunts to build the under 19 teams, and that's where these players came from. So right now there's age group cricket setting up, but I think we really need to work on the grassroots cricket, and that's what Ken's going to do. I think ICC have been in place. They've got some plans ready. So if we can work on grassroots cricket, I think there's a lot of talent in hand back at home. So there are private academies, but I think they can't quite accommodate all the demand of cricket. So candidates to step up. They have their district associations that need to step up and plan something. So there's a lot of participation in cricket, but that has not been systemized. So if they can build a system where all the talent gets a go, I think we're in for a really good period of cricket. And with the result playing World Cup, there's been a lot of government eyes on the game. Actually, all these preparations were possible only because of government support. So that's not quite
Mm.
normal in Nepal, where you have a lot, very less budget for sports. So the government is positive, the fans are positive. The game, there's a lot of positivity about the game. So it's about the board getting plans in place and getting the system right.
Yeah, no, that's true, and I like to hear that, and I think that's going to be quite important in terms of growing the game, because I'd like more of these T20 World Cups, and they say they're going to be a lot more frequent thanks to the ICC. So we'd like more of these tournaments where everybody gets a chance, 20 teams getting in there, and to a certain extent, there are other teams that have been left behind. Zimbabwe's not even in this tournament, which is something else, and there's many other teams that could make it here but are not. But we love to see teams that haven't been given the opportunity to come to World Cup to do coming and doing a really great job, and to a certain extent that's what Nepal did. They got here and they deserve to be here, and we hope that you surprise other teams, Subas, but not us.
Not us.
You can surprise Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, but not us. But it would be great if you did surprise us. It would be great. It would be the same feeling as some of the other smaller nations who are winning games and causing upsets, right? And I think for 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 and actually the final question: how do you feel watching the USA do what they're doing, watching Scotland being so successful in this tournament? How do you feel?
So US cricket, I think they've been different in the last 6 years, 6 months. So they've got some players like Harmeet Singh, Corey Anderson, Andres House. So they've got good experience in domestic cricket. They play regularly, but they've not been test of international cricket like Corey. He
Mm,
played for the New Zealand. So he is come to the US cricket, and I think that's what they needed. So they had talents like Ali Khan, Monank Patel, Steven Taylor in their ranks, but they really needed these experience, the international experience. And I think House is played two brilliant innings. Harmeet Singh has been the motivator behind the scenes. Corey Anderson, he brings in experience when needed. So I think they're a force. They've got a good balanced team full of all-rounders. And Stuart Law, I think, he's waved his magic. He played against the series win against Bangladesh, showed what
mm.
we can expect from the US in the World Cup, and they've done just that. So this was expected as someone who follows Associate cricket, because US, they have stepped up in their squad quality in last few months, and their match against Pakistan, I think that was good enough to show what they can offer going forward.
Yeah, no, that's true. Subas, thank you very much for joining us again, giving us an insight into Nepalese cricket and how you guys are going to be navigating this tournament and the game against South Africa. I wish you all the best for that game against South Africa, and I hope that this tournament brings a lot more money into Nepalese game and brings more eyes into Nepal cricket. The great thing about Nepal cricket is you've got a diaspora around the world
Yeah.
that you can tap into. And I think that's more exciting and intriguing compared to other nations in the world.
Yeah, I hope we will get something out of this World Cup. No, if
Mm.
not for the result, some hope, some expectation that we've kept. I think that rises and rises.
Yeah, no. Subas, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Sure.
Cheers,
Cheers,
Subas.
bye. Yeah, Tim, Nepal, Saturday, June 15. It's going to be an interesting game in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's going to be quite intriguing to see. And it's a first for South Africa, right? They get to play a new nation in Cricket World Cup, in the Cricket World Cup world. And I think that's awesome.
It is. It is. I'm waiting for Lamichhane to get 5 for 12 against us.
So don't be so pessimistic. But if there ever was time for spinners to cause drama, this would be it. But yeah, let's hope they've learnt, and yeah, they can attack. So outside of that, Tim, thank you very much for joining. Good luck to the Proteas. Enjoy the game of cricket on the weekend, and hopefully we'll be back on the other side talking Super 8s in the West Indies and what the chances are for South Africa to go all the way. Outside of that, from myself and Tim, it's goodbye and le sale kakahiso.